God did not adopt me. And you're like, Pastor Julius, what are you talking about? In the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 15 and 16, and I'm going to read this to you. In the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, verse 4 through 6, we get this concept of adoption. And Romans 8, 15 and 16 says this: For ye have not, this is the Apostle Paul speaking to the Roman church, which was actually Gentiles. They were not Jews, these were Gentiles. And he says, For you have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself bearing witness with our spirit that we are the children of God, that we have received the spirit of adoption. Ephesians 1 4 through 6 says, According as he hath chosen us in him before the foundations of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestinated us into the adoption of children by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will, to the praise of the glory of his grace, wherein he hath made us accepted in the beloved. There's a lot to unpack here. Said that we have been accepted by God as Gentiles, non-Jews, being non-descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that we are accepted into as God's children through adoption. The question is, who did he adopt us from? Who where I mean to get adopted, that means that we had to be adopted from another God. And some Christians would tell you, no, you were adopted from the devil. No, the devil has no power to create anything. Begotten is a term which simply means to bring into existence by the process of reproduction. That God brings things into existence by the process of reproduction. That's why he said, Let us make man in our image and after our likeness. And he was talking about the whole human race. We are all children of God. And it's interesting, W.E. Vine's expository dictionary says this about the word adoption. It says adoption of children is a mistranslation and misleading. I'm reading this out of W.E. Vine's expository dictionary. God does not adopt believers as children, they are begotten or reproduced by God as such by his Holy Spirit through faith. Adoption is a term involving the dignity of the relationship of believers as sons. It is not a putting into the family by spiritual birth, but a putting into the position of sons and daughters. In other words, what Jesus did came here to do, he did not come to adopt Gentiles to become followers of him. We already were created by God. There's only one Father, the source of all life, and that's God. And He has created all humans. So we are all His children. And what we do as being what we call born again is when we recognize or we be enlightened or we get revelation or we awaken to the fact that we are children of God. There's nothing to make us children of God. It's the recognition that we were born children of God. We were always children of God, and God doesn't have an adoption program. This is something that the Jews who thought that they were somehow created separate and different from the rest of the world, that somehow their blood was different, their ethnicity was different. And so God looked at them and he saw that they were different from all human beings. It's a misunderstanding of God by our Jewish brother. They're no different than any other human. I mean, you can look at them and tell there's no difference in them. We are all made of one blood. We were all created by the same God. So the idea that Gentiles to be followers of God, to be called children of God, that somehow we were orphaned and then God had to adopt us from somebody. is really a misunderstanding of God. You were born a child of God. You're going to die a child of God. The question is, will you recognize the God in you? Will you recognize that you are a child of God? Because that's what Jesus was talking about when he told Nicodemus to be born again. And then you can see something that God has to put into your life. No, see something that has already been there. God doesn't have to adopt you because you're already his. Now, if you enjoyed this little sermonette, I want to invite you to join me for the Pastor J podcast. We're on YouTube, we're on X, we're obviously, if you're watching on Facebook, we're on Facebook. But come be a part of our community. We want to go deeper into these subjects. And what I do here is just give you, I look like a little 6-minute sermonette, but there's more to unpack here. And I want to encourage you to follow us on YouTube and become a part of our community. But I want to leave you with this thought, and that is that God did not adopt you. You've always been his child.